By the royal decree of King the First, you were all released from prison.
Welcome back to Escargot Estate. Oh yeah, I'm still trapped. Well, my soul is trapped, thanks to like 2 of you. My body has made it back to the mortal realm. But yeah, I'm stuck here forever, so I'm just gonna do this sort of thing, really. Why Escargot Estate? Why are the snails having their merry way with me? Well, I think this place is owned or managed or controlled by whatever your biggest fear is. So maybe if I see one of you down here at one point, it won't be snails wriggling and crawling all over you. It'll be something else. Actually, it's guaranteed your biggest fear will come to you if you don't lick and subscribe. So, yep. This is MarcusPocus, your kind of pulp horror type, magazine show type thing. It's going to be kind of spooky, but mainly fun, to be honest, because kind of spooky is just already too spooky for me. And here's my email in case you want to send me your vicious rumours, your potential ghosts that need hunting, any stories you may have, or anything you think will tingle, jiggle and wriggle my hair follicles. Just so you know, it's hot today and I'm sweating. This isn't... It's sweat. Anyway, I'm off to Guildford. A local magazine says that there is ghosts afoot, so let's go and see how I do in my search. Welcome to the town of Guildford. Oldie English for gold and ford. There's been settlements here going on bloody years ago, and that's probably on account of the River Wey flowing through the town and the proximity of the Surrey Hills, making potential invaders think, oh no. Yes, it's a town. And yes, it has a cathedral, and what an ugly cathedral, by the way, and that locally is a source of much confusion. But that confusion actually stops today, because having a cathedral and or a university is not a prerequisite to a town being granted city status. There is a good video on it by those Map Men blokes who, funnily enough, are doing a talk here soon, which I might go and see if the one on the left being far too posh doesn't put me off. Anyway, enough of this tomfoolery. No one's here for a history lesson. It's ghosts you're after. And it's ghosts I'm kind of looking for. Well, not really. If I find one, it will ruin my life forever. And that's probably why I'm doing it in the daytime in almost 30 degrees heat. Guildford is well known for its ghostly activity, and ghost tours and ghost books are aplenty here. So the best place to start is Guildford Castle, innit? After the Norman invasion, castles popped up willy-nilly around the country. From my estimate, it seems certainly in locations of already established Anglo-Saxon settlements. This was to A, protect from potential invaders, and 2, to help quash local rebellions. Oh, I'm doing history again. So we're talking like this was up to 1066 type time. And so therefore this is old as shit. A site of the nascent Castle of Guildford. For sure there's going to be some ghostly activity during the day, and especially somewhere where there's a gift shop. Yes, that has taken away some of the eeriness, but indulge me. So what's been seen? Well, there have been a number of reports that visiting families have come running out the castle's ground floor, hysterical children in their arms. These children have described witnessing a figure chained to the castle walls. This is where the apparition was seen, the castle prison, where those accused of serious crimes, such as murder, would await their execution. Did I tell you this is a Mott and Bailey castle? These were common back then. Think of it like the flat-pack furniture of castles. Bang a little fortification on the raised bit, the hill, that's the Mott. Surround the flat area around it in walls, that's your courtyard, your bailey, and then build a clothes accessories, a moat or a ditch around the perimeter, and a public toilet, and there you go. I did the history again, sorry about that. I saw a ghostly arm. Don't zoom in, pause, or even look. Next up on the adventure is this funky place called the King's Arms, reported to be as haunted as shit. I stopped in for an iced water, and the place certainly has its charm. Its own website says the King's Head itself is a timber-framed building dating back to the late 16th or early 17th century. It originally consisted of 2 separate houses, later combined to create the public house I'm sitting in today. In the cellar, you can still find the foundations of a square corner of the castle's former outer wall. And that is where staff report seeing some spooky things. Sudden drops in temperature, the feeling of being touched, and dogs that will be growling at doorways that have been bricked up for many a moon. Within the pub itself, patrons have reported seeing a young girl in a white dress skipping through the pub, as well as an elderly woman who stares at guests.
I've worn one of them before.
I popped into Guildford Museum, couldn't open the door, saw this, and learnt a lot about local glass manufacturing.
Muffed glass, urine flasks, blowing vessel, pre-blowing, cooling, anally. Doesn't work at all. No.
Also found this cool old sign. I wonder if anyone can help me date it. I reckon late Victorian. Then it was time for luncheon, and we had ghostly gyro at Meet the Greek. Tasty. I'm going to go back to my spirit form in S Cargo Estate. Part 2 coming later. Hello, I'm back. So just to let you know, you can get the audio from this and my upcoming ASMR Marcus shows, and they're completely ad-free as an MP3 or WAV, FLAC, whatever you want really. If you subscribe to my Patreon.com. Here is the link. The link is actually in the description box, which is a far easier way of getting to it. So yeah, this audio, ad-free, no ads, no YouTube ads, and if you're YouTube Premium, do it anyway. Phantasmagoria. I'm going to read a random story from here. These are fun. I'm on page 114 today, Magical Places of Legend and Reality. The Lost City of Zed, or Z, depending on where you are from. Colonel Percival Harrison Fawcett, 1867 to 1925, disappeared under unknown circumstances, along with his son, during an expedition to find Zed, or Z, his name for an ancient lost city in Brazil. In 1906 to 1907, he had mapped a jungle area between Brazil and Bolivia for the Royal Geographic Society. He claimed to have seen and shot a 62 feet, 19 metre long giant anaconda for which he was ridiculed by the scientific community. He claimed that he was travelling by canoe along the Rio Abuna. Close to his canoe, he saw several feet of broad, powerful, undulating serpentine coils, and a huge triangular head rose up above the surface of the river. And as he and his team watched in horror, a truly colossal anaconda began emerging into the riverbank. Fawcett shot the snake dead, of course he did, and then discovered that the portion of its body that had emerged from the water prior to being shot was 45 feet long, and the portion remaining in the water was 17 feet long. Too many measurements in this. Fawcett and his team had no means of transporting an immensely heavy, rapidly decomposing, 62-foot carcass back to civilization. There has never been fully confirmed specimen of anaconda measuring even over 30 feet, but there are 4 known species of aquatic boa inhabiting the swamps and rivers of tropical South America. There have even been unverified claims of enormous snakes alleged to be well over 50 feet. Oh, they love their measurements in this. Fawcett reported other mysterious animals, unknown to zoology at the time. In 1908, Fawcett traced the source of the Rio Verde, and in 1913 claimed to have seen dogs with 2 noses. After serving in the First World War, Fawcett returned to Brazil to search for a lost city that he still believed existed, somewhere in the Mato Grosso region, and which he still named Zed, or Z. He left behind instructions stating that if the expedition did not return, no rescue expedition should be sent, lest the rescuers suffer his fate. With his son Jack and Jack's longtime friend, Raleigh Rimmel. He took 2 Brazilian labourers, 2 horses, 8 mules, and a pair of dogs. The last communication from the expedition was on the 29th of May, 1925, when it was about to cross a tributary of the Amazon. Both Fawcett's son and friend were ill when last seen by locals, and an estimated 100 would-be rescuers have died in the course of several expeditions sent to uncover Fawcett's fate and that of the lost city. Sounds like for just a silly jolly he's led lots of people to their deaths, and I'm not a fan of his. And I don't believe his story either. Well, it wasn't an anaconda. Let's just say that. Hey, let's go back to Guildford and see if I've found any ghosts yet. I was finding Guildford to be very much still the kind of oldie-worldy type town with the new built around it. The cobbled stones, this old Tudor-looking gaff, and this one, Abbot's Hospital. Founded by the old Archbishop of Canterbury, whatever the fuck that is, I still don't know, in 1619. In the never-ending complex lineage of past rulers, the Duke of Monmouth was another upstart to the throne. The illegitimate son of King Charles II. Do you remember him from Ham House? The son of the Choppy Choppy King? Talking about Ham House, here is my souvenir from Ham House, and every time I go somewhere new, something will be added to my wall. Anyway, the Duke of Monmouth, he wanted to bring back Protestant rule and depose his uncle and current king I, James II. 7th of Scotland. Sorry, I'm doing history again. Anyway, yeah, he failed, obviously, and his last night before his beheading at the Tower of London could have been right here. And apparently, his ghost is still here. His nervous spirit still haunts the old hospital.
Freiberg.
10 minutes up some really annoying roads is the Mount and the Mount Cemetery. Starting in the cemetery, this is where Lewis Carroll is buried, right here. But this place is famous for its ghostly apparitions, including this image taken by Mark Baker. What do you think of this? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one in the comments. According to the local website Surrey Live, Mark, who was sitting in his van using his new equipment when he took the photos, said, "I've just got a new timer for my camera. I wanted to get some photos of the fog lifting. So my camera was just taking pictures. It was not until I got home and was downloading I noticed it." He was adamant when he said he had not digitally altered the image in any way. The black specks are dirt on the windscreen of my van, but the image is way past that. Across the way from the Mount Cemetery is the Mount itself. The Mount is the highest point you can see from Guildford town centre, and it's where the local executions would be carried out, so people could gawk and get off on it all around town. Because of this, and the aforementioned ghostly photo, Guildford is now a hotspot for ghost enthusiasts much braver than I, coming to these places at night and doing these things where you hold 2 rods and use some sort of bleeping machine. You know, those things you see that never do anything on ghost hunts. Anyway, yes. I can't find the castle from here either. It's in this direction. It was really annoying me. And that is Haunted Guildford. I still need to visit the Angel Hotel. Maybe I could stay a night. What do you think about that? So now it's time to read an old, public domain free ghostly story to send you off to sleep. I'm going to put a nice picture of the cast I've been to here with some spooky... nothing really, just that really, and send you off to sleep. So have a good night. Thank you for joining me here in Escargot Estate. Don't find yourself here, and I'll see you next time on MarcusPocus 2. Send me your stories, send me your ideas, send me your ghosts. I'll go and investigate them for sure. Until then, unfollow for less, and I'll see you next time. This is Miss Davenport's Ghosts by Frederick P. Schrader. Dear readers, do you agree with Hamlet? Do you believe that there is more between heaven and earth than we dream of in our philosophy? Does it seem possible to you, conjured up the shade of Apollonius of Tyana and the prophet of the Magi in a London hotel, and that the great sage William Crookes drunk his tea at breakfast several days a week for months in succession in the society of the materialized spirit of a young lady attired in white linen with a feather turban on her head? As for me, I did not laugh last night on reading an account in the New York newspaper of a criminal trial that will probably terminate in the death penalty of the accused. It is a sad case. I shudder as I transcribe the records of the trial from the testimony of the hotel waiter, who heard the conversation of the two Confederates through a keyhole, and of 40 thoroughly credible witnesses who testified to the same facts. What would be my feelings if I had seen the beautiful victim with the gaping wound in her breast, into which she dipped her finger to mark the brow of her murderer? Chapter 1. About 3 o'clock on the afternoon of February 3rd, Professor Davenport and Miss Ida Southshot, a very pale and delicate young girl who had submitted to the tests of Professor Davenport for a number of years, were finishing their dinner in their room in the second story of a New York hotel. Professor Benjamin Davenport was a celebrity, but it was said that he owed his fame to somewhat questionable means. Their leading spiritualists did not repose the confidence in him that manifestly marked their regard for William Crookes or Daniel Douglas Hume. Greedy and unscrupulous mediums, the author of Spiritualism in America thinks, are to blame for the most bitter attacks to which our cause has been exposed. When the materializations do not take place as quickly as circumstances require, they resort to trickery and fraud to extricate themselves from a dilemma. Professor Benjamin Davenport belonged to these versatile mediums. Weird stories were afloat about him. He was secretly accused of highway robbery in South America, cheating at cards in the gambling houses of San Francisco, and the over-hasty use of firearms toward persons who had never offended him. It was said, almost openly, that the professor's wife had died from abuse and grief at his infidelity. But in spite of these annoying rumours, Mr. Davenport, by virtue of his skill as a fraud and faker, continued to exercise a great deal of influence upon certain plain and simple-minded folks, whom it was impossible to convince they had not touched the materialized spirits of their brothers, mothers, or sisters through the agency of his wonderful power. His professional success received material accession from his swarthy, Mephisto-like countenance, his deep, fiery eyes, his large curved nose, the cynical expression of his mouth, and the lofty, almost prophetic tone of his words. When the waiter had made his last visit, he did not go far. The following conversation took place in the room. "There is to be a séance this evening at the residence of Miss Harding," began the medium. "Quite a number of influential people will be there, and 2 or 3 millionaires. Conceal under your skirt the blonde woman's wig and the white material in which the spirits usually make their appearance." "Very well," replied Ida Southshot, I think she's called, in a resigned tone. The waiter heard her pace around the room. After a pause, "Whose spirit are you going to control this evening, Benjamin?" The waiter heard aloud a brutal laugh, and the chair groaning beneath the weight of the demonstrative professor. "Guess." "How should I know?" she asked. "I'm going to conjure up the spirit of my dead wife." Another burst of laughter issued from the room, full of sinister levity. A cry of terror burst from Ida's lips. A muffled sound indicated to the eavesdropper at the door that she was dragging herself to the feet of the professor. Benjamin, don't do it," she sobbed. "Why not? They say I broke Miss Davenport's heart. The story is damaging my reputation, but it will be forgotten if her spirit should address me in terms of endearment from the other shore, in the presence of numerous witnesses. For you will speak to me tenderly, will you not, Ida?" No, you shall not do it. You shall not think of it. Listen to me, for God's sake. During the 4 years I've been with you, I have obeyed you faithfully and suffered patiently. I have lied and deceived like you. I learnt to imitate the sleep and symptoms of clairvoyance. Did I ever refuse to serve you, or utter a word of complaint, even when my shoulders bent with the weight of my burden, when you pierced the flesh of my arms with knitting needles? Worse than all this, I imitated distant voices behind curtains, and made mothers and wives believe that their sons and husbands had come from a better world to communicate with them. How often have I performed the most dangerous feats, in parlours with the lamps turned low, clothed in a shroud or white muslin. I essay to represent the supernatural forms whose tear-dimmed eyes recognise as those of departed dear ones. You do not know what I suffered at this unhallowed work. You scoff at the mysteries of eternity. I suffer the torments of an impending retribution. My God, if sometime the dead, whom I counterfeit, should rise up before me with uplifted arms and dreadful imprecations. This constant terror has injured my heart, and it will kill me. I am consumed by fear. Look how worn out and downcast I am, but I am under your control. Do as you like with me. I'm in your power, and I want it to be so. Have I ever complained? But do not force me to do this thing, Benjamin. Have pity on me for what I have done for you in the past, for what I am suffering. Do not attempt this mummery. Do not compel me to play the role of your dead wife, who was so tender and beautiful. What put that thought in your mind? Spare me, Benjamin, I implore you. The professor did not laugh again. Amid the confusion of upturned articles of furniture, the eavesdropper distinguished the sound of a skull striking the floor. He concluded that Professor Davenport had knocked Miss Ida down with a blow of his fist, or had kicked her as she approached him, but the waiter did not enter the room, as no one rang for him. That evening 40 persons were assembled in Miss Joanne Harding's parlour, staring at the curtain where a spirit form was in process of materialising. One dark lantern in a corner of the room contributed, the light that emphasised the darkness, rather than relieved it. The room was pervaded by profound silence, save the quickened, suppressed breathing of the spectators. The fire in the grate cast mysterious rays of light, resembling fugitive spirits upon the objects around, almost indistinguishable in the semi-gloom. Chapter 2. Professor Davenport was at his best this evening. The spirit world obeyed him without hesitation, like their lawful master. He was the mighty prince of souls. Hands that had no arms were seen picking the flowers from the vases. The touch of an invisible spirit conjured sweet melodies from the keys of the piano. The furniture responded by intelligent rappings to the most unanticipated questions. The professor himself elevated his form in symbolical distortions from the floor to an altitude of 3 feet, indicated by Miss Harding, and remained suspended in the air for a quarter of an hour, holding live coals in his hands. Chapter 3. But the most interesting, as well as the most conclusive test, was to be the materialisation of the spirit of Miss Arabella Davenport, which the professor had promised at the beginning of the séance. "The hour has come," exclaimed the medium, and while the hearts of all throbbed with anxious suspense, and their eyes distended with painful expectancy of the promised materialisation, Benjamin Davenport stood before the curtain. In the twilight, the tall man, with the dishevelled hair and demon look, was really terrible and handsome. "Peer Arabella," he exclaimed in a commanding voice. "We are all waiting." Suddenly a cry burst from behind the curtain, a piercing, shuddering, horrible shriek, the shriek of an expiring soul. The spectators trembled. Miss Harding almost fainted. The medium himself appeared surprised, but Benjamin recovered his composure on seeing the curtain move. The apparition was that of a young woman with long blonde tresses. She was beautiful and pale, clad in some light whitish material. Her breast was bare, and on the left side appeared a bleeding wound which trembled a knife. The spectators arose and retreated, pushing their chairs to the wall. Those who chanced to look at the medium noticed that deathly pallor had overspread his face, and that he was cowering and trembling. But the young woman, Miss Arabella, the real one whom he so well remembered, she had come in response to his summons, and advanced in a direct line toward Benjamin, who in terror covered his eyes to shut out the ghastly sight, and with a cry fled behind the furniture. But she dipped the finger of her thin hand into the blood from her wound and traced it across the brow of the unconscious medium, while repeating, in a slow, monotonous tone that sounded like the echo of a wail again and again, "You are my murderer. You are my murderer." And while he was rolling and tossing in deadly terror on the floor, they turned up the lights. The spirit had vanished, but in the communicating room behind the curtain, they found the body of poor Miss Ida Southshot, with horribly distorted features. A physician who was present pronounced it heart-stroke, and that is the reason that Professor Benjamin Davenport appeared alone in a New York courtroom to answer to the charge of having murdered his wife 4 years ago in San Francisco.